G'day there guys, it's Connie here again from Marquee Industries and we're back with some more stories from Reddit. As always, if you enjoyed these videos, be sure to hit like and subscribe, and also the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Alrighty, let's get right into it. Alrighty, kicking things off on Am I the A-hole? This one was written by user Leo Bastion and it's titled, Am I the A-hole for not making my son forgive my brother after he was uninvited from his wedding? 6 months ago, my son, Leo, 14, decided to cut off my brother Jack, 46. Now my mum, brother, sister-in-law and other family members want me to make my son forgive him to keep the peace. For a little bit of context, I'm 46 and a single dad. My family has always helped me in many ways, mostly babysitting when Leo was younger, and even before my son was born we were all very close. We all live relatively close to each other, so we've been able to keep in touch with weekly gatherings, spending the holidays together, etc. Everyone loves my son, and my son loved them back. However, my brother Jack was always my son's favourite person. Back when my son was 3 to 4 years old, Jack and his wife had more flexible jobs than me. Think freelancing versus a 9 to 5. So they always volunteered to look after Leo, something he loved. Almost every month, they would take him to the zoo or the aquarium, or they'd even go camping with him. As my son grew older, he started to develop the same interests as my brother, like video games, photography, and music. When Leo was 9, he told me he wanted to have the same career as his uncle. This is all to say, they were extremely close. Last year, my brother informed me that he and his girlfriend Mary were getting married. I knew that neither Jack nor his girlfriend believed in marriage, so when I asked them about it, they told me it was all Karen's idea, my sister-in-law's mum. Because Jack and Mary didn't care much about the wedding, and since Karen was paying for it, they let her plan everything, from the venue to the food, music, etc. Karen decided to plan a destination wedding at a fancy resort. In July of last year, we received the invitation, and it was addressed to both me and my son. I even had a +1 if I wanted, and as soon as the website went up, I tried to make a reservation for our hotel room. I should clarify that I had to call the hotel to make my reservation because the link wasn't working, and I really couldn't risk not getting a room. When I received the email confirmation, it said, room for 2 adults, but I didn't think much of it and just assumed it was an error due to the language barrier with the hotel guy. I also bought the plane tickets for us around the same time. Fast forward to January, less than a month before the wedding, when my sister-in-law called me crying, saying that Karen had made a mistake with the venue. Apparently, the resort was for adults only, so they didn't allow anyone younger than 16. My son was 13 at the time. I asked her if it would be possible for Leo and me to stay in another hotel, but they told me the whole resort was child-free, so my son wouldn't even be allowed to attend the ceremony or the reception. I was disappointed, and I told my sister-in-law I'd talk to my son about it. I knew how excited he was about his uncle's wedding, but she insisted both her and Jack wanted to tell him in person. Honestly, my son was devastated. He started crying as soon as he was told he wouldn't be able to go. He pleaded with them and even offered to give them all of his savings so they could move the wedding. After 30 minutes of this, my sister-in-law got frustrated and just told him that he was being selfish and that this day wasn't about him. Leo eventually apologized and went to his room. After the wedding, my son just stopped talking to my brother. If Jack sent him a message, Leo would just ignore it unless it had something to do with me. For example, he would only reply if Jack asked him to tell me something because he couldn't reach me, etc. On our family gatherings, Leo would only respond to small questions like, "Can you pass the salt?" or "Help Grandma with the plates," but he would ignore my brother if Jack or Mary started to try a conversation or ask him about school, etc. A month after the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take him for a special vacation during spring break to make up for the wedding, but my son just ignored them, and he later told me he didn't want to go with them. It was heartbreaking because I knew how much he wanted to go to that place, and I wasn't able to afford it yet, but he stuck to his guns. Something similar happened on Leo's birthday. He asked me if I was planning to throw him a party. I do it every year, and when I said yes, he asked me not to invite his aunt or uncle. I tried to convince him to invite them because they're family and they were really sorry, but he just said that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. My brother was crying when I told him he wasn't invited. However, things came to a head this past weekend. We were at my mum's house and the conversation of Leo's university came up. My mum asked Leo if he was still planning on going to the same university as Jack, and that he should start planning for that, but my son replied that he wasn't interested anymore and he had chosen to study something else. Then my mum said, "I thought you wanted to be like your uncle," and my son just said, "Why would I want to be like him?" At this point I intervened and told Leo he didn't have to be so rude, but the damage was already done. Both my brother and sister-in-law heard what he said and they left shortly after. Last night, my brother texted me saying I was an a-hole for letting my son continue with this grudge, and he even accused me of being jealous of their relationship, and that's why I wasn't doing anything to fix it. I just told him these were the consequences of his actions, and that this was 100% his fault by allowing his piece of crap mother-in-law to plan the wedding when she obviously hated my child. He hung up on me. My mum and some other family members think I should force my son to forgive my brother so we can all move on, claiming there was no ill intent and it was just a small mistake, but I don't think I should. My son was clearly hurt, and he should be allowed to heal and forgive them only when he's ready. So, am I the a-hole? Yeah, this is tricky. I mean, holding grudges is not a great attribute, but you also can't force someone to forgive someone else. If anything, that'll just make it worse. Let's go to the comments. Not the a-hole. I have a hunch this is less about the wedding and more about the conversation where they called him selfish. To me, that conversation would have done enough damage to ruin the relationship. I'm guessing they never apologized to your son for saying the things they said or reacting the way they did. He trusted them, and instead of them helping him process this extremely upsetting thing, that was their mistake, they called him selfish and yelled at him and effectively ruined their relationship. They are the adults. If they want to fix the relationship, they need to stop trying to buy him and they need to start apologizing and making amends for the hurt and discord they caused. Your son wasn't rude when he said he didn't want to be like his uncle. He was answering a question honestly. No one should put him in a position to give an honest answer he would get in trouble for. That's incredibly crappy on the adults to do, especially when you called him rude. You are the a-hole for that. Get him some therapy. He's been betrayed by some of the most important people in his life. Your son is the only one not the a-hole in this situation. You should apologize to him as well for calling him rude when he wasn't. You cannot force someone else to forgive another person. Your child was hurt. You can talk to him, but you can't force your son to forgive. The more people try to make your son, who is only 13, forgive him, the angrier he is going to get. Not the a-hole. I think your sister-in-law getting frustrated with him and telling him he was being selfish was the proverbial nail in the coffin. He was already upset and hitting the bargaining stage of grief for not being allowed at the wedding, and she basically kicked him when he was down. And your brother stood by and let it happen. Leo will never forget that. Opie adds more info on the actual family conversation. His response was rude because of the tone, not because of what he said. He said what he said, and using a very specific tone to get a reaction out of his uncle. That's why it was rude. He wasn't just responding to the rather inappropriate question asked by Grandma. He was acting up. He was trying to pick a fight. Trust me, I've heard that tone many times before. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I understand why he is hurt and angry. I've respected his boundaries and helped him navigate this as best as I can, but that doesn't mean I have to accept him picking up a fight every chance he gets. As for the conversation, I didn't include my reactions because I didn't consider it relevant. Paraphrasing, of course, it went something like this. Mary said, "We made a mistake and you won't be able to go to the wedding." Leo, "But why? You invited me. I want to go." Mary, "The place where the wedding is taking place only accepts adults. You can't enter." Leo says, "I don't get it. Can't you make an exception?" I say, "They can't. It's not up to Mary and Jack. Remember when you tried to get a part-time job at the pub and the owners told you they can't have children inside, let alone working there? It's like that." Leo said, "Can you get married somewhere else?" Mary says, "We can't. We already paid a lot of money for that place." Leo says, "I can give you my savings. I have X." Mary, "It's not enough, and it's not just us who spent money. All the guests already spent a lot of money, and they don't want to lose it." Leo says, "My dad has money. He can give you money so I can go. Please, I want to be at the wedding. It's not fair." Jack says, "I'm sorry, Leo, but we can make it up to you. What do you say if we take you to Greece after the wedding? You always wanted to go." Leo, getting more and more upset, "I don't wanna. I want to go to the wedding. Why didn't you want me there?" I said, Leo, it's a mistake. They wanted you there, but we all made a mistake and we didn't realize sooner that there was a minimum age. Leo, it's not fair. Why did they invite me then? I want to be with my uncle on his special day. Mary, raising her voice, this is not our fault. It just happened and you need to let it go. I'm sorry you can't be there, but you need to stop being selfish. This is my special day, not yours. Then Leo broke down. Like I wrote in another comment, I tried to console him and I just shot Mary a shut up look without saying anything in the moment. Jack did tell her something, but I didn't hear what he said. Once he calmed down, Leo said he was sorry and asked me if he could go to his room. Mary and Jack were saying sorry, but Leo didn't even look at them. I followed my son to his room to make sure he was okay, and he asked me to leave. I went back to the living room. I said, WTF is wrong with you? You have no right to yell at my son. Mary says, I'm sorry, I'm too stressed. We'd been fighting with my mum about this for 2 months. I said, I don't care. I told you on the phone he would be disappointed and you made it worse. Get out. Jack said, please, Jacob, she didn't mean it. I'll make it up to Leo. Then I said I don't care. Get out. Then they left and I just went to check on Leo. I don't have a photographic memory, so I don't remember every single word that was said, but this is the gist of what happened that day. An Opie response to some comments. Yeah, I agree the initial conversation was a mess. I was pretty upset when my sister-in-law called Leo selfish, but I didn't want to make things worse, so I just let it go. I know I should do more, but I don't want to push Leo too much, you know? We had a small fight when I told him he still had to respond when asked to do things, etc. Honestly, it was my idea not to skip the family gatherings. I told him that he should go for the sake of everyone else who loved both him and my brother, since they'd be sad not to see either. He eventually agreed to make Grandma happy. And to be fair to my mum, she ripped my brother a new one when she found out what had happened. However, she insists that Jack is genuinely sorry and is trying to make it up to Leo, but that Leo isn't helping by holding a grudge. She thinks it's not healthy for Leo. And on Leo's mother, and where was she in all of this? My ex and I got divorced when Leo was 2, and she decided to move back to her home country. We kept in contact regularly for a few years until she married again. These days, she only calls on Christmas and on his birthday. Is Leo in therapy? Yes, I got him in therapy in May, after his birthday. I started looking for one after he told me he didn't want to invite his uncle. I have no excuse, but I honestly didn't know it'd take so long to find him a therapist. It was almost 2 months. And on his interactions with Mary's mother. Sorry, I haven't interacted much with her outside of some large family gatherings, but basically she's the type of person who always complains about kids running around, or how she cannot drink freely because there's kids in the room, and she made some rude comments about my sister having too many kids. She only has 3. I did ask Jack several times if Karen had done this on purpose, but he insisted it was an honest mistake. I'm just not sure I believe it. I haven't interacted much with her, but in the few times we did, she was always the first to complain about kids. You know, like kids running around, screaming, etc. She also made several comments about not being able to drink freely because of the kids, or making passive-aggressive comments towards my sister when she was pregnant with her youngest. Maybe I'm biased, and she's never liked this outside of these events, but she didn't leave a good impression in my opinion. And for the record, my brother has been with Mary since they were 22, so Mary has always been around. Okay, now for an update, 2.5 weeks later. So, I've received some messages asking for an update. I appreciate everyone who took the time to comment and send me messages. Some may have been a bit harsh, but I deserved it. Thanks for slapping some sense into me. The short version is that we'll stop going to the family events for a while. I talked to my brother and he will respect my son's boundaries, and he also explained what really happened. And above all, Leo is doing much better now. Here's the longer update in case anyone's interested in the details. Mum and sister. The short of it is that I informed my mum that both Leo and I would stop going to the family gatherings until things calmed down, and more importantly, until he felt comfortable again. She was understandably upset, but I think she finally understood how much she had been hurting Leo. What surprised me is that my mum told me that Jack had become depressed, so she was worried about him, and that's why she was so insistent that Leo should forgive him. I basically told her that if we forced Leo to forgive my brother, we risked pushing him away from us. As for my sister, She was also sad when I told her we'd stop going to the family gatherings, but she said she understood. However, she suggested we make our own weekly tradition so that the children can still hang out, and that's what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. We decided my nibblings would come to my house one week, and then Leo would hang out at hers the next. So far it seems to be working, and Leo is happy with this arrangement. I think it helps that he isn't being pressured by the adults expecting him to talk to his uncle. Jack and Mary. The weekend after I posted here, I texted my brother asking him to meet me so we could talk. I had told him that I wanted to speak with him alone, so Mary wasn't present. Jack immediately apologized and said how much he regretted what he had done and the things he had told me. He confirmed what I already suspected and said he was stressed because of the constant fights with Mary. He mentioned that he had considered divorce because of how bad the fights got. I may seem cruel here, but I basically told him that I didn't care about that. What I wanted was for him to tell me the truth about what the hell had happened. Jack maintains that he didn't know about the venue being child-free until last November. However, like many of you suspected, Mary had known for quite a while, maybe even the whole time. Apparently, this all started a few years back when Jack and Mary took Leo to the beach. While they were playing, my son had accidentally called Jack Dad before quickly correcting himself. From what Jack told me, it was a small mistake, like when you call a teacher Mum. Leo was embarrassed, but Jack just laughed it off. The catch? Jack's mother-in-law, Karen, and father-in-law had joined them for that vacation, and they overheard Leo when that happened. When they came back from their vacation, Karen had gone ballistic, claiming she was triggered by some random kid calling Jack Dad, knowing that Mary can't have children. Mary had tried to explain it was just a misunderstanding, but Karen became extremely toxic and abusive towards Mary, and she started making demands, like not inviting Leo over when Karen visited, etc. So when Jack and Mary decided to get married, and since they initially just wanted to elope and not have a party at all, Karen manipulated Mary and convinced her to let her plan the perfect wedding for her only daughter. Mary gave in because she was sick of several years of emotional manipulation, and she just wanted to keep the peace. So Karen hijacked the wedding, and she chose the child-free venue on purpose. Mary discovered this when the venue was booked, or shortly after, but she didn't say anything because every time she tried to argue, Karen would play the victim and stuff. Mary claimed that she had tried to negotiate with the resort that an exception be made so the children could attend the ceremony and reception, even if they stayed in a different hotel, but the manager stood firm on the policy. But the closer they got to the date, the more anxious she got, until she finally admitted the truth to Jack in November. According to my brother, Mary exploded to Leo because of all the constant bullying and manipulation from her own mother, and she also felt extremely guilty by letting things get that far. For his part, Jack said that if he had found out before, he would have stepped in and cancelled the wedding rather than exclude Leo and my sister's children, but by that point, a lot of people had already booked their flights and hotel rooms, so cancelling wasn't an option. In the end, I told my brother that none of that excused the way they had behaved, especially his wife. She was a 40-plus-year-old woman picking a fight with a kid. She had yelled and called him selfish when all Leo wanted was to offer the £2,000 he had saved so he could be part of Jack's special day. I reminded him that Leo looked up to him and considered his hero, and he had let him down. He had shown Leo that he wasn't important to him the way Jack was important to Leo. I also told him that I would keep supporting Leo on going no contact, and I'd be going low contact with him myself. He asked me for a chance to apologize to Leo, but I told him he had already apologized. All he could do now was wait to see if one day my son would accept his apology. Jack seemed hurt, but he told me he would respect our wishes and give us time and space. Leo. As for my son, I apologized for not standing up for him and forcing him to meet with my family every week. I told him that he could decide what he wanted to do with that part of the family going forward. He seemed reluctant to stop going, but I let him know that I would support him no matter what, and that I wouldn't be upset. What made me happy was that Leo suggested we could stop going to the family every week, and instead we could spend more time together, he and I, doing some of the things he used to do with my brother. Last week we went to a vintage car show, and next week we're going to watch Wicked. I'm not a theatre guy, but it sounds fun. I also told him I was worried he'd stopped doing things he liked, and that he shouldn't stop just because he had a falling out with someone he cared about. I basically told him it was okay to still enjoy things by himself or with someone else. He admitted he actually wanted to do those things, but stopped just to spite Jack. I decided to give him an early Christmas gift and bought him some games he'd been excited about, but that he had refunded after the fight with my brother. He even convinced me to play with him on some Final Fantasy online game on his PS5 while he plays on PC. I admit I have no idea what I'm doing on that game since the last Final Fantasy game I played was still in 2D, but he seemed to enjoy watching me fail. Any advice here is welcome. Finally, we decided to take a trip to his dream destination for my birthday. I was a little bit sad because it's going to be the first time in almost 50 years that I don't celebrate a birthday with my brother, but I've got my son, and that's all that matters. So yeah, Leo is happier and less stressed about the family. Speaking of which, I think the family is finally respecting our boundaries, so that's good too. I just hope my brother can work on his marriage. I may hate what they did, but I do want him to be happy. One comment asks, has Opie's brother been able to deal with mother-in-law's behaviour? Opie says, I don't know, she's my brother's problem, not mine. What about Leo's college goals? Does he still want to follow Jack's footsteps? We actually talked about this too, and it's a bit complicated. He admitted this is one of the things he stopped doing out of spite, but he really doesn't feel like following Jack's footsteps. He repeated what he said at the dinner the other night. He doesn't want to be like Jack. I told him we could compromise by leaving it be for the next 2 years so he can reflect on what he wants, and then we'll have the conversation again when it's time to choose his A-levels. And Leo's dream destination. He wants to visit Greece. He's been obsessed with Greek mythology since he was little, so he's always wanted to go there. Yeah, I'd love to go to Greece too. Let's go to a new update, 5.5 months later. It's been a while, hasn't it? The wedding anniversary is next week, and I remembered this post. I just thought I'd do one quick update for those wondering what had happened. TLDR, life's been boring. Longer update. Leo and me took a step back from the big family for a bit, but we decided to give the holidays a go with everyone. I gotta admit, I was nervous. We even had a backup plan in case things got awkward with Jack and Leo. Thankfully, it was all rather uneventful, like all the others. The biggest thing is that my brother and Leo had a proper chat on Christmas Eve. I saw them talking, and Leo went all quiet, which worried me at first, but he said it was a good talk. They're not back to how they were, not by a long shot, but they've been spending a bit of time together since then, hanging out and sometimes just playing games. It's still a bit weird for all of us, but it's progress, I guess. I know some people were worried about Leo's future, as if my brother's career was the only option, lol. But Leo's a good kid. He's been branching out and trying new things. He said he wants to become a game developer, or maybe a writer. I've been reading some of his stuff, and it's pretty good, or I may be biased because he's my son and all. As for uni, he's been considering a physics degree or becoming a pilot. That's probably my fault. I introduced him to my favourite author, and now he's obsessed with time travel and alternate universes. I also finally convinced him to try a sport, and he's liked it so far. I even got him to watch some games with me, and may drag him along to next year's World Cup. And I also always wanted to visit Mexico, so it's going to be nice. Just the two of us and all of that. Jack and I have been making an effort to meet up every fortnight. It's been hard, I won't lie. Our birthday was back in October, and it was particularly rough. I know some will be angry at me, but I miss my brother. I read something that said you can love someone and not like them, and that's kind of where I'm at. Leo will always be my number one, but Jack's my brother, and it hurts to be apart, you know. On the Jack and Mary front, they're heading for a divorce. They had to be married for a year, and Jack said he'll file ASAP. Maybe next week or the week after. It's been tough on him. He said it wasn't just the fallout with Leo, but a lot of other things too. I'm sad for him. But life goes on, doesn't it? It's mostly been pretty boring day-to-day stuff, dealing with work and a teen and some health-related stuff. But yeah, thanks to everyone who commented. And some final comments. Glad things are working out alright and Leo is alright. I hope the healing for everyone continues. Also unsurprised regarding the divorce. Opie responds to multiple comments about having his son checking coding activities out to see if Leo likes it or not. Thanks for the insight. I'd been thinking of enrolling him into some kind of coding boot camp so he can see if he likes it. We'll see what he decides to do in the coming months. Boring is good. Sorry to hear about your brother's divorce, but ultimately he was responsible for how Mary got to treat everyone in the situation. You will get your brother back, but as you said, it will be different. I'm really glad to hear that Leo has been healing enough to be ready to start talking to Jack again. I think that your patience, support, and understanding had a lot to do with him being able to reach this stage in his healing. You were right to not push him, to let him set his own pace. I'm glad everything worked out. I've been following since the first post. I have a few questions though. Did you guys like Wicked? Did you see the movie after? Opie says, we enjoyed it, yes, but we haven't watched the film though. Who is Opie's favourite author and what has Leo read so far? Christopher Priest. He loved the inverted world and the gradual, but he's positively obsessed with the separation. He insists it's both an alternate universe and time travel story of sorts. I'm not sure I see it, but he makes some compelling arguments, lol. I think he's interested in physics for the quantum thing about many worlds. It's fun to watch, not gonna lie. Okay, I've never heard of those books, but sound interesting. I might have to check them out. Anyway guys, that's the end of that story. All in all, a pretty good ending, and let's hope that they can repair the relationship with Jack in the long term. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Either way, we're going to jump on to another story. Alrighty, we're over on relationship advice. This one was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, My sister-in-law disinvited my wife from her baby shower after a joke, but my brother still wants me to go. I am stuck in the middle. I, male 30, recently married the love of my life, female 28, and I'm super close with my brother, 35. We always imagined our families being close too, until one single lunch ruined everything. So, my wife and I went out to eat with my brother and my sister-in-law, 31, who is pregnant and about to give birth to my first nephew. Needless to say, we are all very excited. Mid-meal, my brother, probably feeling sentimental, goes, Man, I hope the baby turns out like OP. He was such a cute kid. Now, a bit about my sister-in-law. She's usually nice and I like her, but she's definitely type A and a bit high maintenance. Without missing a beat, she shuts my brother down. No, I'd much rather he turns out like you. A bit of an awkward comment, and my brother probably thought so as well, so he goes, No, seriously, we'd be lucky if the kid was like OP. He was such a nice and cute kid. And then sister-in-law doubles down. No, but you're so much more handsome, before turning to look directly at me and adding, no offense. Now look, I wasn't deeply offended. My brother is a very good-looking guy, so I get it. But who just says that out loud? My wife, who had been quiet up to this point, clearly found it rude, so she jokingly goes, Well, as long as the baby doesn't look like sister-in-law, we should be fine. I chuckled, my brother laughed, sister-in-law did not laugh. She immediately got pissed, glared at my wife and went, What the hell does that mean? That's extremely rude. We're not close enough for jokes like that. My wife was taken aback, and so was I. My brother tried to say something, but she stormed out. My brother followed her, looking about as confused as I felt. Fast forward to today. Sister-in-law has officially disinvited my wife from the baby shower and celebration. My wife says she doesn't even want to go, which, fair enough. My brother is devastated and really wants me to be there. Now, here's the thing. My brother adores me. He's always been my biggest supporter, and he wants me to be a big part of my nephew's life. He's having his first child, and this moment is really important to him. I love my brother too, and I can't see him sad like that. He says both my wife and sister-in-law need to apologize eventually, but we shouldn't force it right now and give them some time to cool off. He also thinks sister-in-law owes me an apology for what she said, but again, pregnancy hormones or whatever, so he doesn't want to push it yet. My parents actually side with my wife and think sister-in-law was out of line first, but they also believe I shouldn't miss such a huge moment in my brother's life and that we should cut sister-in-law some slack because of her pregnancy. Here's my issue. I don't feel right going if my wife isn't welcome. I want to support her, but I also know this moment means the world to my brother. If I go, my wife might feel abandoned. If I don't, my brother will be heartbroken. I feel completely stuck. Yeah, talk about a rock and a hard place. Let's see what the comments think. You stay home with your wife. Send a gift. Your brother has to deal with his wife. Absolutely. Choose your wife OP, or it will be the beginning of the end of your marriage. Pregnancy hormones are a real thing. Definitely don't force anything until the sister-in-law is ready. You should definitely sit this one out with your wife. Your wife is your nuclear family now, and as much as you love your brother, him and his wife come second in your list of priorities now. I'm failing to see why what the sister-in-law said was offensive. I'd rather my kids turn out like my husband rather than my brother-in-law, regardless of what my husband said in the moment. Your wife got butthurt over another woman preferring her own husband over hers on the subject of her child. That's weird as hell to me. What does your wife think? Does she want you to go? Me personally, I would ask my husband to go because I wouldn't want to rob him of that opportunity with his own brother, especially if I didn't even care to attend said baby shower to begin with. It wouldn't hurt me in the slightest. I'd be home drinking wine waiting for the gossip when he is back. But that's me, and she is her, so I think you should ask her honestly what she thinks and feels about you going and honour whatever she says because, well, that's your person now. Opie replies, knowing my wife, she will definitely say that I should go, but I also feel that deep down she will feel that I didn't stick up for her while she did stick up for me. I don't know whether you should go, but I have some thoughts about what happened. Your brother, the father of the child, makes a joke that the kid should look like you because you are cute. That's funny for the most part, but it also has a weird edge to it, because it might sound like your sister-in-law and you were uncomfortably close. Your sister-in-law, not comfortable with the joke, says she wants her baby to look like your brother, a completely reasonable response. Your brother doubles down. This was a mistake. While you may have been the cutest kid ever, sister-in-law did not know you then, and making jokes that her baby should look like you is cringy. Also, your brother is putting your sister-in-law on the outside of a joke. She doesn't think it's funny, but he says it again. He is highlighting his relationship with you over his with her. Sister-in-law says, "No, but you're so much more handsome," which is what a wife ought to think about her husband, but which sounds pointedly against you. Then your wife suggests that your sister-in-law is unattractive. She broke the support women give each other when the men they each love are being clueless, and her comment was needlessly cruel. You, your brother, and your wife have excluded your sister-in-law in the conversation. Your wife's comment was the worst. What could have happened? Your brother made a funny but a little cringy comment about the baby looking like you. Sister-in-law says nope, it should look like her husband, and then one of several things might have worked. All of you joke good-naturedly about how cute your brother is and how the kid will be fabulous looking like his dad. You make a joke at your own expense, suggesting the kid should look like its dad. Your wife jokes about how it doesn't matter because sister-in-law is so beautiful and the baby should look like its mum. And can you see that your sister-in-law was being shut out in the conversation, even though it was clear from her first response that she wasn't liking the joke? Her hormones are all over the place. She is type A, which is just a personality and not a character flaw. The combo of her personality and her pregnant state leave her vulnerable to a sense of hurt. If you want your families to be close, this is a critical moment. No one should be defensive. Your wife should apologize. She did not have to say something genuinely mean. You and your brother should probably apologize for ratcheting things up. Your brother and sister-in-law may need to talk about why the initial joke bothered her. The whole thing sounds to an outsider like she does not feel completely accepted in your group. Best of luck to you all. Clearing up friendship problems is best done before they fester. Yeah, great comment. What more needs to be said? Okay, now for an update. Thanks everyone for the replies. I think I read almost every single one. I really appreciated the different perspectives. First, some clarifications. 1. My wife is not a mean person. She made a joke in the moment, although I admit that it wasn't a great joke given the sensitivity of the situation, but she's genuinely one of the kindest, most caring people I know. That's one of the reasons I love her so much. 2. I don't think my brother did anything wrong by bringing up the topic. We were reminiscing about childhood, and he probably got nostalgic about having his little brother following him everywhere. My brother and I resemble each other quite a bit, though he's definitely the better looking one. Funny how that works. And just to be clear, that doesn't mean I'm insecure. If anything, he's the outlier. He's one of those people who naturally turns heads. Even when we were younger, he'd get random girls hitting on him wherever he went. It was such a running joke in our family that even my parents would tease him about it. And 3, the entire conversation lasted less than 5 minutes and escalated very quickly. I agree with the comments that all of us should have handled the situation better, but easier to say that in hindsight. In real time, things just got out of hand very quickly. I'm sure that all of us regret what we said in the moment. Now for the actual update. I told my wife that I wouldn't go unless she was also invited. She immediately told me that she didn't want to be the reason I missed it and that I should go if I wanted to. She even said she'd be willing to apologize if my sister-in-law was open to it, but that she wouldn't attend even if re-invited because she'd feel uncomfortable. I told her I appreciated that, but for me, it was both of us or none of us. Then I called my brother. And this is where I have to give him a lot of credit, because I know he was upset. He had really wanted me there, and I could hear the disappointment in his voice, but instead of pushing, he just said, "I get it, man, don't worry about it." I know that wasn't easy for him to say. He had to balance keeping things calm with his wife while also wanting his brother by his side, but he didn't guilt-trip me, didn't try to convince me otherwise, he just let me make my choice. He even said, "Don't worry, we'll save you guys some food and I'll drop it off later." I offered to help with setup if he needed it, and told him to say I have COVID to avoid awkward questions. He just laughed and said, "Got it. You caught the world's shortest COVID, just long enough for the baby shower, but miraculously recovered the next day." Now, here's where things got a bit more complicated. My mum was not happy with him for not sorting this out earlier. She felt like she should have stepped in and made peace before it got to the point where my wife was uninvited. But my parents didn't say anything directly because they didn't want to get involved in the drama. I think that really weighed on him. He was already trying to navigate a tough situation, and now he had our parents silently judging him too. It put him in an impossible position, trying to be a good husband, a good brother, and a good son all at once. A couple of days passed with no further drama. Then something unexpected happened. My wife got a call from my sister-in-law. At first my wife panicked, thinking she was about to get yelled at, but instead they actually had a really good conversation. I overheard bits of it, including my wife saying, "No, you're gorgeous," which made me laugh a little. After the call, my wife told me that sister-in-law actually apologized first. She admitted that she'd been feeling really self-conscious about her looks during pregnancy and that my wife's jokes had hit a sore spot. A little later, my brother called me. He told me that he had gently talked to sister-in-law and helped her see that things had gotten out of hand. He also told me that knowing my wife was willing to apologize had made a huge difference. And then he admitted something. He had wanted to fix things before the baby shower, but he knew his wife was already under a lot of stress. He didn't want to add more pressure on her while she was in the middle of planning. And honestly, I respect that. My sister-in-law is one of those people who needs everything to be perfect. Her look, my brother's look, the house, the decorations, etc. So I can understand the pressure she must have put on herself, and my brother knew that pushing her while she was stressed wouldn't have helped, so he waited. And after the event, when things calmed down, he quietly stepped in and fixed things. So, where do things stand now? Well, things seem good on the surface. My wife and sister-in-law made peace, and my brother and I are fine. My wife and I have decided to just be extra sensitive around sister-in-law given what she is going through. All in all, the situation seems to have brought us somewhat closer together. The real takeaway? I have an amazing wife, but her humour could use some work. Also, my brother ain't too bad. Side note, speaking of whom, my brother will probably never see this because he only uses Reddit for sports and news, or so he says, but in the off chance he does, well, guess I'm busted. But since I have your attention, I'll admit something just this once. You were the best bro I could have asked for. That time you helped me for uni, I don't think you know how much it really meant to me. And when I was at a really low point, you stood by me. I don't think I've ever said it, but I've always appreciated that. Of course, I won't ever admit this in person and will forever deny I ever wrote this. Gotta love that, brotherly love. Great to have a good ending. You don't get that all too often these days. Let's read some final comments to wrap this up. And now, clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right is stuck in my head. I must admit I mostly skimmed over this one, but am I right to imagine 4 people floundering around a shallow puddle until they all suddenly get up and realize nobody's drowning? There were a dozen exit ramps and easy de-escalation options, and everyone chose to plow right ahead into the abyss in the first post. Did sister-in-law need to insist that Opie is so much less attractive than her husband? Did brother need to insist that the child should be like someone other than the 2 parents? Did wife need to say that the baby would be lucky not to look like sister-in-law? No. At every single turn, every person could have reacted differently, and this wouldn't have happened. At any point, someone could have turned it into, luckily both sides of baby's family are pretty dang great, so he'll be cute no matter what. I'm glad that cooler heads have prevailed and everyone was able to communicate through the gaff without too much trouble. Yeah, I'm sure they must feel pretty stupid for getting into that position in the first place. What about you guys? What are your thoughts about this one? Let me know down below. Anyway, that's it from me today. Hope you guys enjoyed those stories. Thanks for making it to the end, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good day. Cheers.